Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So this is going to be part 2 of 3 of my interviewing female preppers. Today's topic primarily is going to focus on the advantages and disadvantages of being a female in a post-collapse environment. Alright guys, so we're ready for round 2 of interviewing female survivalist preppers and homesteaders, and the format's going to be exactly the same as last time. I will ask that you go and do yourself a favor by subscribing to all of the channels of the participants in this video. You certainly won't be disappointed. They're going to provide you with some more perspective, and perhaps it's going to be a perspective that you don't always agree with. It's certainly not one that I always agree with, but that's the same for any interviewee on this channel. But it does help broaden your perspective, gives you different insights, and hopefully makes you a smarter, wiser, better prepper. So let's get to it. What might be some advantages to being a woman in an SHTF situation, and what might be some disadvantages?
I feel like an advantage of being a woman in a chaotic situation is that people will underestimate you, especially men, and probably not take you seriously. And the reason why I feel like that's an advantage is that when people don't take you seriously, they tend to not worry about you, or they tend to not pay you any mind, which I think that's good. And another thing is, I feel as if, when you're a woman, when it comes to men just, I don't know what it is about men, especially when you're a woman, but they just treat you differently. They handle you with a little bit more care. They're more mindful of you. Especially when you're like one woman surrounded by a whole bunch of men, they just treat you differently. But sometimes the disadvantage of that is that, there are men out there that might try to victimize you as a woman. But, you have to set yourself up not to be a victim and learn self-defense.
I think there are a lot of advantages to being a woman in a shit hits the fan scenario. Our response to threat is to tend and befriend. It's to tap into the existing relationships that we have with other people, to strengthen them, to create new ones. So for example, a woman will be thinking in a shit hits the fan situation, okay, 2 doors down, my friend is really good at using medicinal herbs. Okay, she's a resource I could tap into. Or I know someone else who's really good at growing carrots and I've never really been that great at it. I need to talk to her about that. She'll also be thinking about that person maybe in the neighborhood who is due soon and thinking, oh my gosh, what if she can't breastfeed that well? What if she's struggling? Is there someone who's got a source of milk? Is there someone who's got an animal that we could use? Because she's also thinking that strength comes when we are self-reliant ourselves, when our families are self-reliant, and when the members of our community are as self-reliant as possible. And then we can do the bartering, then we can do the exchanges, then we can do the things that make it much more likely that we're going to succeed. Yes, you can be the lone wolf, but mathematically, the more people in your community that are prepared, the better. Now, another thing about women is that because we are so wired, as I said, to tend to befriend, that tending, that nurturing, that caring, that warmth also means that when people are struggling, when they're having difficulties, that women have a really strong ability to be healers. And that's going to be really needed in a situation where things are really out of control and things are really falling apart. You're going to need that strength that comes from a nurturing, caring female. Now, in terms of disadvantages, as I spoke to you guys earlier, childbirth, that's a huge disadvantage. Not being able to have access to C-sections, to surgical repairs, to lactation consultants, all of that, that's a huge, huge disadvantage. And in any given year, if you're in your reproductive years and you're healthy and you're having regular sex, 85 out of 100 women will be pregnant by the end of a year, by the end of 12 months. Our fertility rates are around 15%. And so birth control is a huge area of vulnerability. And if we are dependent on chemicals, we're just setting ourselves up for disaster, because what do unplanned pregnancies turn into? They turn into that nightmare scenario of delivering during shit hits the fan. Yeah, so we have to get the birth control piece sorted out. And there are natural family planning methods that you can use. But shit hits the fan is not the time to try to learn about them. I mean, the internet's going to be down. You won't even be able to Google it. So no, you want to get your head up to speed in that area now. I think something else, an area that we're really vulnerable in, is our physical strength and size. It's an unfair fight. This is not a sexist comment. The anatomy and physiology of men is such that they are stronger. They are physically stronger. So that's just a reality we have to face. It's an unfair fight. And what it means is that women have to really take their personal defense seriously. They have to learn how to protect themselves and defend themselves. Yes, we do need the men in our lives to help us in terms of defense, the family, but they can always be injured. They can always be taken out of the game. They can always be hurt. So self-reliance really comes from knowing that we can meet our own needs if we have to. So ideally roles get divided up, but if for some reason you have to do them all, then you do them all to the best of your ability.
I can only speak for myself and say that my skills make me versatile. I can be in the house and I can be making a difference by making homemade meals, or I can be outside of the house gardening, I can be outside butchering, I can be wild crafting. My skills make me valuable. I can't really speak for other women because other women have strengths that I don't, but these are the strengths that I have. As a woman in general, a disadvantage would be that if you got pregnant during this situation, your calorie needs might not be getting taken care of, and thus your whole system would be drained. Maybe for a lot of women, not having learned to be self-reliant might be a disadvantage, but I think that people are resilient. I think that people learn quickly. And so I don't know that there is any disadvantage of women to men per se.
Perhaps it's that I've always enjoyed being a woman. I feel that if a woman embraces who and what she truly is and really comes to terms with the fact that, yes, I have a uterus and my uterus does certain things, if she comes to terms with that and she makes provisions for that, then she shouldn't find herself at a disadvantage, whether now or in the future, whatever may come, find herself at a disadvantage. I don't think there's advantage or disadvantage in either sex. Either you're prepared or you're not. I don't think anyone's going to change in an apocalyptic type world or a post SHTF world. Whoever you are now, hardships is only going to exemplify that. So if you're a nurturer now, then you're going to be like uber nurturer then. If you are a selfish person now, you're going to be uber selfish then. If whatever roles, whoever you are now only gets exemplified. If you are a very dependent person now, oh lordy, you're gonna be a hot mess in an SHTF situation. So whether women will take on a more nurturing role, I don't think so. I think women will be what women are. And if you are a nurturer, if you're a woman that's a nurturer, then a situation like that would throw you into a heightened sense of who you are. And you'll want to take care of people because that's what you do now. I would love to think that more women would take up the call of hearth and home and put more focus into their homes, men included. I think where we're at right now in society is because there's a neglect in the home, and perhaps some good could come out of SHTF, and that we would realize that the most important thing and the most important investment that we could make is into our homes.
In general, and I'm totally generalizing here, ladies know how to cook at least a little bit. I mean, we're used to preparing the meals for the family. And so even if we have to adapt that cooking to an off-grid cooking method, it's not going to be that hard. We're already used to being the provider of the meals and food for the family. We're also used to providing care, child care, love and concern for others, just the basic predisposition that women have to help others and show kindness. I think that's going to be an advantage. And another advantage, maybe we'll be more likely to be helped. And I'll talk about this in the disadvantages section too. But if you had a man come to your door wanting help or needing help, and you had a woman and children come to your door, which one would you be more likely to invite in and help? Women actually have quite a few disadvantages in an emergency situation. One being just size and physical strength. In general, again, totally generalizing, because I know there's some wimpy men out there, but in general, if there's heavy labor to be performed, a man is going to be more able to do that than a woman. You take like 6 foot, 250-pound man or a little 5 foot, 100-pound woman. And who's going to be able to lift more? It's just physics. But I don't feel like any disadvantage that I think I have is going to be a handicap to me. I think those are areas that I just need to focus on in my preparedness efforts and compensate for. Maybe work a little harder there or get a little more creative in ways that I can kind of compensate for any perceived disadvantage that I might think that I have. Another one, and this goes back to, a man shows up at your door or a woman shows up at your door, which one are you going to help? The woman is also more likely to be a target. Again, it just is. We're smaller, we're weaker. If you are going to attack somebody, you've got a choice here. You're going to attack either 6 foot, 250-pound man or a little 5 foot, 100-pound woman. She is a lot easier target. So again, I feel like this is just something that we as women need to take into consideration. Any areas that we might feel weak in or know that we are disadvantaged in, and prepare harder or prepare smarter in those areas.
Women of childbearing age, I think, would be valued by a post-apocalyptic community. How else are you going to propagate the species for the future? Now, unfortunately, that leaves me out of the game, so hopefully they would value the wisdom of a grandma. In all seriousness, though, studies have shown that women are better listeners and better at reading body language, so better communicators, and that could be important in negotiations and in peacekeeping. And of course, the negatives would be violence against women, be it rape, abuse, sexual servitude, whatever it would be. I think that is why it's really important for women to learn how to defend themselves and also to use firearms, because a gun can be a great equalizer in such a fight.
Honestly, I think women are really good at staying calm under pressure. And I think that women are really good at, again, bringing people together, as I said earlier, bringing people together in a community or in kind of a family-oriented thing, and really looking at things logically, saying, okay, well, if we did that, then we would have to do this sort of thing. So I think males are a lot more kind of quick to the gun. They're gonna just get out there and do whatever they have to do. But I think females will have that upper hand in, okay, well, let's hold on. Let's think about this for a second. Let's calm down and let's think about this logically and figure out a plan. Of course, males do that too. I'm not discounting that, but I think females do have that upper hand in a lot of situations of logical thinking. I think some disadvantages are definitely that, females are seen as weak, and there are going to be a lot of females and males, of course, that are going to be taken advantage of in a SHTF situation. And unfortunately, there are going to be a lot of women who won't know how to handle that. And I think, women are generally seen as weak. So there's going to be a lot of disadvantages for the general female in that. And we would have to prove ourselves a lot in a kind of situation like that.
Are female prepping priorities different from that of males?
And I don't know that they really are, because we both have the same end goals. We both want to preserve our own lives and protect the lives of those we are responsible for, children, the elderly, the disabled, the infirm. And ideally, we want to not just be alive, but we want to have a good quality of life. We want to prevent illness and prevent disease. And how we get there may be different just because we have different roles, but the end goal is the same. So I don't think our priorities are that different, to be honest with you.
As a woman, I feel as if my priorities are different because I go through a monthly cycle, and, you know, during my monthly cycle, I go through a lot. So I definitely want to be prepared for that. And also there's a possibility for me as a woman to get pregnant. So that raises a whole bunch of other concerns, because going through a monthly cycle and, you know, possibly having the ability or possibility that you could conceive a child can pose a whole bunch of new hygienic threats and life-threatening dangers that, you know, I'm very concerned about. And a man doesn't have to worry about getting pregnant. So as a woman, I feel like hygiene is very important and something that we need to prep for. A lot of, you know, preppers online, they're men, and, you know, they don't really dive into that aspect of hygiene and keeping yourself well taken care of. So yeah, I do feel like as a woman, I have different concerns as far as prepping opposed to men.
I'm not really sure a female prepper's priority is really different from that of males. I think that we're all kind of in this mindset together of we just want to be prepared for emergencies and disasters, and, you know, maybe something beyond that, apocalyptic sort of thing. I don't think I'm not really sure priorities change unless we're talking about maybe of reproduction priorities and things like that. I don't think women have the need to reproduce like men do, but it is our responsibility to reproduce. So I think that might be a, you know, priority if we were to reproduce, that kind of thing. So other than that, I'm not sure that our priorities really differ.
Ultimately, I don't think so. I think people are prepping because they want to protect their family and their self. So we all have that same big goal. It's just that some of us might come into prepping a little bit differently. Maybe the male is thinking a little bit more about defense, and the woman about nutrition and health. So she's a little bit more into an extended food pantry and first aid supplies. But ultimately, everybody has the same goal. But they might have a little different perspective. That's why it's really nice if a couple preps together and works together on prepping. But you don't often see that. It's usually like one spouse that's into prepping and the other one just says, okay.
Hormones and children will always come into play when you ask a woman about prepping, and that is because her first priority is going to be to take care of her children. And I think that's really the only difference between men and women, is that the women will be very practical about the day-to-day needs of their children and their family, whereas the men might be more off in the future fighting zombies kind of thing.
I think at the core, we have the same objectives. We want to survive, we want to take care of our families, we want to take care of our friends or neighbors, you know, maybe extended family, but how we go about it might differ. As has been their role for centuries, men tend to focus on provide and protect, with kind of a heavier emphasis on protect than ladies might have. And ladies will tend to focus on food, childcare, maybe medical care, areas that we're already comfortable in, areas that we're predisposed to be naturals at, even though some of us aren't all that natural at some of those things. Do I need to say again that I'm really generalizing here? Okay, I know there are some men who are great cooks and some ladies who like to shoot stuff. I mean, I like both of those, so it's great. In no way am I saying that these are exclusive things. Totally generalizing.
How might female preppers differ from average females?
I'm not going to say anything about women that don't prep. or that don't choose to live a self-sufficient lifestyle. What I will say is women that are preppers or women that are homesteaders, whatever words you choose to identify yourself with. I personally identify more with the homestead aspect of it. Women that live that kind of lifestyle, I think, have got great foresight. They are multi-talented. The women that I've met that prep are, man, they've got a lot of skills, and they've got so much to teach, and they've got so much to share with the people around them, as opposed to just being a sponge and just sucking from everything and everyone. And man, I just called women that don't prep a sponge, so there you go.
I don't think there is such a thing as an average female. I would love to be able to be the female that goes out and works outside all day and never has to be in the kitchen. And so another woman who was willing to cook in my kitchen in exchange for shelter and food, oh my gosh, that would be the ultimate blessing. Because I hate to be inside. I love to be outside. And so I think that it's all about skills. It's all about personality. It has nothing to do with sexes. It's just about, what are your skills? What have you developed in life? Can you get along with other people? And I think that's really important.
I think the big difference is in awareness. Female preppers have had their eyes opened, and that awareness filters how they view the world, the decisions that they make, how they spend their time. So for example, someone who has seen a community, let's say, that's had an ice storm and has watched through the news coverage or through YouTube videos or whatever, talked to people who've been through one, and they've heard that, oh my gosh, the roads were impassable because of the ice. Electricity was out for weeks. They couldn't get groceries from the grocery store. And then thinking, oh, how often are grocery stores restocked? So someone who's had their eyes open to that situation, when they go into a grocery store, what do they think? Well, number one, they're thinking, I'm really grateful that there's all this food here, and it might not always be like this. And what food would I really want to have in my own pantry in case we had a situation where we couldn't get to the grocery stores, whether there was floods or fires or electricity, whatever it was, right? So you see the world in a different way. And the good news about that is all it takes for people who are not preppers to become preppers is really awareness. They just need to have their eyes opened. When people see the reality of what can happen, they will automatically come to similar conclusions. At least most people will. There will be some people who just assume that someone is going to miraculously take care of them. But a lot of people will go, oh, I didn't think of that. Or, oh, that is a problem. So that's the good news.
I think female preppers are a lot more observant than the average female. And I would say this about males too, but a lot more with females, because let's just be honest, females are seen more as a victim role. And I think if you are a prepper and you're female, you have a lot better understanding and of, taking your own life in your own hand and not being a victim. And I think with the average female, they just kind of go through life and they're like, well, something happens, I'll call 911, or, everybody is there to help me, but I don't need to do anything, I don't need to do self-defense or anything, That's an average female. A prepper female is, I'm going to be prepared for this, and I am going to take my own life in my own hands, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me otherwise. I think female preppers are extremely strong, and I think an average female, not saying that they're not strong, but I think it's a different type of strength. I think it's something that gives them more forethought. I think it's something that gives them better observation of the world around them. And I think it's something that gives female preppers a little bit of a leg up on average females, because they see the world a little bit differently, and not as a world that's out to attack them, but as a world that they know, can be a scary place, and they need to be prepared for that.
Well, Nate, I'm not sure what is an average female. Not sure how to define that, but I have always strived to be more than average. But based on what I think maybe female preppers like to control their environment. They are able to see the threats around them. They're thirsting for knowledge on how to protect themselves and the family from these threats. And I think they have a can-do attitude and want to learn more and more. You know, a female prepper is not necessarily a stereotypical prepper chick or a G.I. Jane type. They come in all sizes, all ages, from all walks of life. Some of them are even an older woman grandma.
We have different stuff in our purses. In my purse, I've got 3 ways to start a fire versus 3 types of lipstick. Some ladies, okay, again, I'm totally generalizing here because I know some prepper ladies love lipstick, and bless them, I'm just not one of those. I have no doubt that average females love their families every bit as much as I love my family. It's just how we spend our time and how we spend our money. One area that we differ in as well, and this is anybody who chooses to prepare over chooses not to prepare, is that when we see a potential disaster or are presented with a potential disaster, what do we do with that information? Do we shut down and push it aside and hope that it will never happen and go on about our lovely little life in denial that something could happen? Or do we take that information and say, what can I do to prepare for this potential disaster, and then move on with our lives? Like I said, I have lots of friends who have no idea that I am into preparedness, that I have a YouTube channel or a website or a book, because I'm just an average female in general. I've just chosen to spend some of my time and efforts preparing for potential disasters and potential problems that I see in the future.
Really, in truth, I'm no different than your average female. I'm just a female who decided to get all my preps together and just make sure I'm prepared just in a worst case scenario. But for the most part, I like getting my hair done. I like doing makeup. I like smelling pretty. You know, I'm no different than any other woman.
All right, I want to thank all the guests for participating and sharing your valuable insights on this channel. I would hope that we would continue the discussion in the comment section below and get some good just general dialogue going about this with the girls and the guys, exchanging ideas about emergency preparedness, because I really do think the female perspective is something that is missing in these discussions that we have on here, especially regarding the pocket talk stuff, which I didn't get into too much in this video, but that might be something I explore in greater depth in the future if the participants are willing to go at it for another round. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the video, and by all means subscribe to all those channels. You won't be sorry. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
Check out the Canadian Preppers Network blog, an excellent resource for survivalists and preppers.